Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, malcontents. I'm talking to you in my Mike Solon voice, my serious, conservative podcaster voice, where you kind of talk like William Shatner, but with no emotion. Okay, enough fun with that. Good evening, malcontents. My name is David. I am the Malcontent, and welcome to another edition of Malcontentment Happy Hour. Today is Monday, October 18th, 2021. Can you believe that there's barely 2 months left in 2021? Thank God. At least this isn't like 2020, where by this point in October, we're like, all right, it's like year 15. I don't even know what day it is anymore. Hello, Rashi. Hello, Maddie. Hello, Wendy. Wendy in the house. Ty, Ursinate. The gang's all here. What a day. Certainly not anything I expected. There is obviously, because today is deadline day, there is a ton of COVID news today. Morpheus, hello. There is a ton. Charlie, hello. There is a ton of COVID news today, but we're not going to go to COVID first. We're going to do local politics first. We have three interviews that are three continuing interviews, I should say, for the city of Kirkland, for people that are running for city council. I want to explain a little bit to how the way the city of Kirkland works. If you're from the East Coast, particularly if you're from the Northeast, the Kirkland's city government, the city council, is structured very, very similar to how city councils are set up in Massachusetts. Kirkland does not elect a mayor. In Massachusetts, they're called selectmen. They're probably called select persons now. When I was growing up there, they were called selectmen. Think of them essentially as city councilors, and then the city council would elect essentially a leader, a quote-unquote mayor. However, the mayor, because the mayor is elected by the council and not by the people, has a more limited subset of powers, and the powers that a mayor can have varies from city to city, both within the construct of what the state constitution is going to support and what the city charter is going to support. So Kirkland has this structure that is very similar to Massachusetts. We don't elect a mayor. A mayor is elected by the board. Now, the reason I explain that to you is We have interviews for position 3, which includes the incumbent, who is Penny Sweet, and Penny Sweet is the mayor. So I just explaining that for people who maybe are outside of Kirkland and are like, what? She says the mayor, it's city position 3. Like, what is this? So now you know what all that is. Whoa, my Facebook is in Spanish. We are en español. It's a little quieter tonight than I thought. I thought we'd have, but we'll see what happens as the night goes by. So with that explanation, we're just going to go ahead and dive right into it. And it was in Spanish, and now Tori, you're cracking me up in the comments. We're going to go ahead and roll Penny Sweet's interview. The next we're going to have is the candidate that is running against her for position 3, which I want to say is I want to get his name right, so I'm going to look it up actually and practice it before I say it. But with that said, let's go ahead and roll Penny Sweet's interview.
Thank you for joining us for the 2021 Virtual Kirkland City Council Candidates Forum presented by the Kirkland Chamber of Commerce. Each candidate for City Council has been interviewed with the same set of questions and the same response time given. At the end of this video, you will see the contact information for each candidate where you can contact them with any questions that you have. And again, thank you for watching. How do you propose that the city government help to address the housing affordability and workforce housing access in Kirkland?
As a city, Kirkland has been a leader in attempting to address the issues of housing affordability, but the problem continues to escalate beyond our efforts to address it. It's the cost of land. As we contemplate the 85th Street corridor and the bus rapid transit station at 405, we must assure policy that will allow us to use things like density bonuses, particularly around commercial development, and partnerships with organizations committed to developing affordable housing. We must work with our legislators to create legislation that allows use of areas like the freed up Cloverleaf property at the BRT station to develop parkland and open space to support new density, and at the Kirkland Park and Ride for a combined parking affordable housing project in the future. We should also look at the potential for allowing affordable housing in critical areas. Habitat for Humanity had a project for 11 houses at Forbes Creek. Critical area requirements killed it. Allowing for offsite mitigation for affordability might have saved it.
Thank you. What do you see that the city can do to better support economic development in Kirkland?
Well, weeks before I took office, Kirkland did its final annexation, increasing our population by 33,000 and allowing us to take advantage of an annexation sales tax credit of up to $4 million a year for 10 years. That sales tax credit expires this year. Since that time, our city has been on an aggressive growth track for businesses across the city in all of our commercial areas. Until the pandemic hit, we were on a trajectory that easily could have made up for the lack of tax credit out into the future. Because of the impact of COVID, things have struggled, but for the most part have not failed, and we are coming back. Smart growth projects like Totem Lake and Kirkland Urban, along with the new MRM project next to Urban, have added thousands of square feet of commercial space, along with office and residential space. As we contemplate the new station on 85th, we have the opportunity of continuing that smart growth. We must also continue working with the legislature on issues like tax increment financing to further support that growth.
Thank you. And how do you think the government should handle the pandemic if we continue to see a rise in hospitalizations and variants?
Since February 29th of 2020, Kirkland has followed the best available science around response to COVID-19, and we will continue to do so. The sad fact that so many have chosen not to protect themselves and all of the rest of us by wearing masks and getting vaccinations puts us at risk of having to mandate requirements in some environments if the disease continues to escalate. I'm very hopeful for the children's vaccine and booster shots. I remember the joy with which my father, a physician, came home with the first polio vaccine in 1954. Our country was aligned around shutting down the progression of polio, and people embraced the opportunity to get their children vaccinated. I keep wishing that would happen now.
Thank you. And finally, 30 seconds of parting words for our business community.
Thanks, Sam. And thanks for setting this up. Hey, business community, I've been a member for 40 years this year, or actually next year. And I think 40 years as a member of the chamber. It has been an incredible learning experience. I love being a part of this business community and of this community simply in general. And I work hard to make sure that we're making right decisions, and I will continue to do so. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Penny.
Thank you, Sam.
And there you go. That was Penny Sweet. Penny Sweet is the incumbent. She is running for position 3, and she is also the mayor of Seattle. If you're coming in late and if you're missing my explanation, the city of Seattle, Kirkland. Sorry, she is the mayor of Kirkland. The city of Kirkland does not elect the mayor. The mayor is elected by a vote by the council, and the residents of Kirkland vote for people on the city council. Her opponent for position 3 is Matt Gosler, and we have, she does have it. It is like the first time I heard it, I was like, what? No, really? And no, that really is her name. And I think anybody could understand. It's like, oh no, come on, really? But yes, that is really her name. And with that said, I'm going to go ahead and now roll. You know what, Ursinate, it's funny. I'm seeing your comment. She seems pretty straightforward. She is very straightforward. I would describe her as what you see is what you get, good, bad, and indifferent. But she is very, very straightforward. And with that, let me roll the interview for the opponent for position 3, the other candidate that is running on there. This is Matt Gosler. And I hope, Matt, I got your name right, because as people know, I speak perfect American.
Thank you for joining us for the 2021 Virtual Kirkland City Council Candidates Forum presented by the Kirkland Chamber of Commerce. Each candidate for City Council has been interviewed with the same set of questions and the same response time given. At the end of this video, you will see the contact information for each candidate, where you can contact them with any questions that you have. And again, thank you for watching.
Thank you to Matthew Gosler for joining us today, running for City Council. And welcome. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today.
All right. Thanks for joining us. So we're going to dive right in. So you're running for City Council, and one of the things that we would like to ask is, how do you propose that the city government help to address the housing affordability and workforce housing access in Kirkland?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's one of the core issues of my campaign. My position is detailed on my website. A strong business community relies on a diverse workforce that can afford to live and shop where they work. As an employer, I'm experiencing direct impact on my ability to hire and retain staff. Our teachers and firefighters can no longer afford to live in the community they serve. It is imperative that the city create a strategic and comprehensive plan for growth. As your council member, I'm committed to doing this and have the experience and leadership to make it happen. I will advocate for diversity in housing options and for smart revisions to our zoning codes that are proven to maintain neighborhood character while increasing diversity and allowing for growth. Importantly, we must change our approach to require first-time and family-sized housing to be built as part of every development. This has proven to be the best way to build diversity in housing stock in truly diverse neighborhoods. I look forward to working with the community to make housing attainable for our workforce.
Thank you very much. Next question. What do you see that the city can do to better support economic development in Kirkland?
The City of Kirkland is pro-development without a clear strategic plan on how to integrate and lift up our existing business community. The boom in demand is driving up costs for businesses on both the lease and labor side of the cost equation. Kirkland owes our business community the same level of attention that it provides to new development, with programs in place to support and retain a strong local business base. New growth should be approached strategically with a mindset of how it will enhance and support our business community and service offerings. Our planning policies should focus on placemaking with a focus on creating a feeling of destination for each neighborhood and community, with the end goal to enhance the entire business community, not solely focus on the benefits of a specific development or project. The city should enact policies to support business-facing displacement. This can be done through protecting and encouraging developments that support underlying zoning, by requiring a relocation plan to be in place for any displaced business as part of development approval process. As your council member, I will partner with the chamber and be an avid supporter of our Kirkland business community.
Thank you. And how do you think the government should handle the pandemic if we continue to see a rise in hospitalizations and variants?
It's a great question and a challenge I think we all were hoping would be gone at this point. The Kirkland business community has actually done an amazing job managing the uncertainty and disruption created by COVID. Our local business community has stepped up to support masking, air exchanges, and distancing. We have seen a lot of great creativity around how to continue business under new rules. The government owes our small businesses clear direction, support, and messaging, and financial support in the form of tax and mortgage relief, and a clear message to the public that our Kirkland businesses are open. I've seen a direct impact that remote work has caused on foot traffic to local businesses. We have COVID relief funds that should be applied quickly and directly to encourage a safe return to work, support struggling businesses, and to generate grants and microloans to help impacted businesses reopen the doors. Kirkland should expand its approach to identify all partnering agencies that can support in helping our neighbors to safely return to patronizing our local businesses. There's a hunger for this in the community, and we can make it happen under the right leadership.
Thank you. And finally, just some parting words for the business community.
Now, we live in a very unprecedented time of amazing growth and development in our community. With that, we see challenges. And as a business owner, my eyes are wide open to those. I'm seeing that our working class is moving out of the city with no ability to live in the community where they work. I'm seeing businesses struggle to find staff and struggling with the cost basis of their lease space. In many cases, the space businesses need to operate are being torn down, leaving the marketplace, not to return. The level of displacement uncertainty is hindering growth and reinvestment in our small businesses and the growth that helps them achieve their full potential. As your council member, I commit to working with you to solve these issues and to make sure that Kirkland is a vibrant, welcoming community for all businesses moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it today.
So that was Matt Gosler. If you've followed if you've kind of followed all the interviews you're going through, you might be like under the impression like, wow, people that run for public office in Kirkland are lucid. And you would probably be correct in that assessment. I certainly wish we had more racial diversity for people that were running for the city council. That is not to disparage anybody that is on the council. I've said many times, and I know people that live on the east side have said this, and we've talked to people in the BIPOC community on air about this. Is Kirkland a model of racial? And of course not. And there's nothing in Washington state that is. Is Kirkland above average than its neighbors on the east side? Absolutely, it very much is. But there's more work to be done. And that call to action includes the citizens of Kirkland itself. There needs to be people that are willing to stand up and run for office. And with that said, because a couple of times it's bubbled up, you should run for council. I'm like, oh, God, no, I would never inflict that kind of suffering upon myself. There is no freaking way. And I do believe that that's one of the elements that holds people back from running for office, because they don't want to go through the, you know the word, for running for office. Okay, last interview. John Pascal is running unopposed. He is seventh position on the Kirkland City Council. He has no opponent. However, did do an interview so people can hear his positions. And I would also say, like, you could write in your own candidate at the end of the day. You're like, I'm not voting for the guy. And so with that said, let's go ahead and we're going to roll the last interview for tonight, which is John Pascal.
Thank you for joining us for the 2021 Virtual Kirkland City Council Candidates Forum presented by the Kirkland Chamber of Commerce. Each candidate for City Council has been interviewed with the same set of questions and the same response time given. At the end of this video, you will see the contact information for each candidate where you can contact them with any questions that you have. And again, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining us for our Kirkland City Council Candidates Forum. We have with us John Pascal. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, it's great to be here, Samantha. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks. So we're going to dive right in. How do you propose that the city government help to address the housing affordability and workforce housing access in Kirkland?
Well, first off, housing is a critical issue, not just for Kirkland, but across Puget Sound and the entire state. And as a small business owner here in Kirkland, I've been directly impacted because employees have left to find places with a lower cost of living. The biggest way, though, that Kirkland can continue to address housing affordability is to allow for a range of housing options. And I'm proud of the regulations I've supported in my time on council and previously on the Planning Commission. And these regulations have included the missing middle, ADUs, residential suites, transit-oriented development, cottage housing, and greater densities in our commercial areas. We also need to look for creative ways for workforce housing, like we did in 2019 with Arete. And then one item that I'd like us to consider in the year ahead is eliminating business taxes for those that provide long-term rentals at rates that are affordable. And then finally, this is not just a Kirkland issue, so we need to continue to work with the chamber, other businesses, nonprofits, and leaders at the region level and at the state level.
Thank you. What do you see that the city can do to better support economic development in Kirkland?
Well, there's just a range of different things we can do, and it really starts with, I think, communication and partnership with the business community and the chamber. If we don't have those good relationships, it's really difficult to know what is needed and whether potential legislation will harm businesses. So let me give you an example of what I mean. When we enact something such as the eviction moratorium, we need to understand how that could undermine our long-term economic development goals related to building more affordable housing. Why would a developer want to invest in Kirkland if we are seen as more unpredictable than surrounding communities? So communicating with the business community is key. Yet, voters do need to be mindful that council could enact harmful policies to businesses, such as the B&O tax, which we don't have and that I don't support. But I will continue to support businesses, especially locally owned shops. The formation of the Shop Local campaign is one example where the city supported the business community. And then finally, I just say that city government really needs to be responsive to the unique needs of the business community moving forward.
Thank you. How do you think that the government should handle the pandemic if we continue to see a rise in hospitalizations and variants?
Well, I guess I'd start off by saying that I've supported the way that the region and the state have used the data in which to base decisions upon. And it is an uncertain time, and we must do everything we can to protect the community. I think we live in a pretty remarkable place where 90% of those eligible for vaccination have gotten at least one dose here in Kirkland. But we do need to learn from past practices and avoid doing things that can significantly impact businesses. The restaurant and retail community were really hard hit. If additional restrictions are implemented, then they do need to come with funding support. Overall, though, I do believe we're trending in the right direction with the current mask and vaccination requirements. But if things do turn for the worse, I do want to avoid a city-by-city government response. Such mandates would be terribly confusing to the public and I think much less effective. So that's why we need to continue working with the leaders at the region and at the state level. And I'll do that as a policymaker with the city of Kirkland.
Great, thank you. And finally, 30 seconds of parting words for our business community.
Okay. Yeah, I'd just say that it's been an honor to serve you all, the business community, the last 4 years on the city council. And just, I'm seeking reelection because I want to continue to assist those who are struggling from the pandemic. That includes the business community. I want to address the challenges that come with growth. I want to continue helping make the community stronger, safer, more equitable, and continue working with the business community in tackling those challenges. So Kirkland's a wonderful place, and I'll do what I can to maintain that charm and livability. But yeah, thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
All right, that's our last interview, and that actually concludes our interview series for City of Kirkland. We have another interview coming up on Thursday, one that I think people will be, certainly our Seattle audience will be more interested in. Part of the thing about business community, don't forget, is that these interviews were done by the Chamber of Commerce. So business community and business talk is going to be something that's important. Putting on my Red Sox hat. Oh, maybe I'm not, man. I have to clean the Red Sox hat. The Red Sox are kicking ass. That's why I was putting on the Red Sox hat. I'm excited. Like, I totally wrote them off. Like, holy cap. 3-12 with three grand slams at 2 games. They just handed the Astros their asses again. I don't know what's up with these guys, but I'll take it. All right. Today's been interesting in the COVID news front. To say that today has been interesting in the COVID news front is an understatement. We're going to get into some of that very, very shortly in the very interesting department. And with that said, let's go ahead and start talking about what's going on. Over the weekend, there were a couple of voices in particular in the media, Brandy Cruz, excuse me, and Jason Rantz, excuse me, something in my throat, who were, Brandy Cruz, did this video over the weekend, it's just the whole dramatic with the police disappearing from the view and roads aren't going to get plowed. And, we all know this is going to be the truth. And, and here we are. We know, we don't know all the numbers, but we know a lot of the numbers tonight. And what do we know tonight? We know that statewide, from hospitals to schools to state organizations to fire departments to police departments, between exemptions and here, I got vaccinated and here's my proof, and people actually making sure they weren't submitting falsified vaccine cards. The number of people that are vaccinated or have exemptions is well over 90%. The basement is about 90%, but many, many organizations are 95, 96, 97. And there are a number of organizations that are 98, 99. And there are some small organizations within the state government that have, a couple of hundred employees that have achieved 100%. I know for non-commissioned officers, so for Seattle Police Department employees, but they're not officers, right? They're essentially the back office, so to speak. They were reporting they were at 98% over a week ago. Right? There was all of this gnashing of teeth, and Jason Rantz today was still trying to spin this as some kind of, disaster that's going on. So what do we know? Again, we're at 90 to close to 100%, depending on the organization, depending on the school, depending on the hospital, depending on there's a range there. We also know that we're not going to know all the numbers until the beginning about November, because what's going to happen is notices are going to have to go out. For instance, in the state and also at state, King County, multiple unions, not all unions, and at the city of Seattle level, multiple unions, but not all unions, there were deals that were struck that enabled people let's say they applied for an exemption and their exemption gets rejected tomorrow. They now have the ability, because of the negotiated deals, to go, all right, fine, I'm going to get vaccinated. And they will continue to be able to keep their jobs. So we're not going to know the real numbers until we get to November. What do we know? Well, we certainly know, like, if you saw my TikTok video that was done, and I was genuinely tired when I made that video because it was early in the morning. There's not really a whole lot of acting in that video. If you saw my video this morning, then you know I was kind of like, well, the electricity still works. That was the other one. Was it Katie Davis Court or was it Brandy Cruz? What's going to happen when the power lines are down and there's no city electric workers to restore the power and we're all going to be in the dark? I don't know if that was Katie or Brandy, but it was one of them. I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, because we're seeing the flipping numbers that are there. Anyway, I did this video where it's like, well, the power's on, the phone works. Let's look at the headlines, right? And it's like, all right, well, let's see, headline here. Oh, Colin Powell died. All right, let's look at this headline. Colin Powell died. All right, let's look at this headline. The Seahawks lost. Let's look at there's 100. We'll talk about the 142 buses. We talk about the good, bad, and the ugly here. Dora, we'll talk a little bit about what's going on in the UK. Your favorite epidemiologist actually did a great update talking about that. So we'll touch on it. It was Katie talking about the power lines. Yeah, Katie is big bad tonight. We'll get into that a little bit later. Did the ferry stop running today? No, they were able to maintain their schedule. Was there school bus routes that collapsed? No. Right? Waking Up Washington had this whole thing. Oh, everybody needs to do a big walkout on the school. All the students and teachers do a walkout on the 18th. Yeah, that didn't friggin' happen either. It was largely business as usual. And the right-wing press, it just it's like the balloon that's come out of there. So Jason Rantz did this thing where it's like, it's not true. It's actually could be over 200 because there's 125 officers that are on leave or there's always been these numbers of like this isn't like some new magical number that happened today. So he's already spinning, right? There's 24. That's it. 24 SPD officers said, suck these. I'm not giving you any paperwork. I'm not asking for an exemption. And those 24 are going to be shown the door. They will almost certainly file a lawsuit for wrongful termination, which will be quickly thrown out by the courts because of Jacobson v. Massachusetts Supreme Court, 1905. I'm not going to go over that friggin' case again. Do your own friggin' research. There are 99 other officers who have been given exemptions. However, their requests for accommodations have been rejected. There's a couple of things that could potentially happen here. Will all 99 of them not get accommodations? I'd be a little surprised by that. I do believe, I'm going to give sympathy to the devil here, and some people aren't going to like it. I do believe among those 99 people on the Seattle Police Department that have requested exemptions and got them approved, are 100% of them illegit? No, I don't believe that for a second. I do believe at least a handful of those exemption requests are legitimate. And I think that the city is going to be in a tough position to go, well, too bad, legitimate or not, game over. What possible accommodations could be made? I don't know. And then you kind of get into things, we beat Eric Whitehead into the ground. By the way, Katie had this thing like Eric Whitehead was the... Go back to her stuff in January. They identified the wrong officer and he was doxxed. He wasn't friggin' doxxed. He just had his name, just like your name, Katie Davis Core, my name, David Obals. There, see, he wasn't doxxed. Anyway, and of course, it was Eric Whitehead. But, did Katie issue a retraction or correction of that? No. Do we issue retractions or corrections? Yes, we do, and we screw up. And we do occasionally make mistakes, but we own them and admit them, something that the right-wing press can't do. I'm a little fired up tonight, if you can't tell. A little fired up. We're not seeing a big number there. What will happen? So are all these SPD officers fired tomorrow? No. And anybody who's telling you that is friggin' lying to you, because it's already been said they are not fired. That's not the procedure. They go to a Loudermill hearing. So they will get a letter basically saying you're at risk of getting terminated. You have to show up to this Loudermill hearing to basically go, why should you still have a job? Same thing's going to happen with King County Sheriff's Department. King County Sheriff's Department was already way over 90% vaccinated, and that was a couple of weeks ago. I think the other thing that's really worth pointing out is that we know, right, they set up this website, SPD. Someone in SPD set up this website. Looks very Mike Solon-ish, but that's only implying that, don't turn in your paperwork. Essentially make them sweat. We know that 130 made them sweat. And 106 ultimately turned in their paperwork today. And it was validated. So we don't even know if that 106 turned in their paperwork today, or did that 106 turn in their paperwork earlier and it was just under the validation process over the weekend. We don't even know that. Seattle firefighters, 16. 16 said smoke you. It's like, saying, the city's going to burn. No, it's not. Seattle city workers, less than 150 total from all other departments. So of the 11,000 employees for the city of Seattle, 190 roughly are like, yeah, you're not the boss of me. You can't make me what you do. I'm going to say it again, really loud for the people in the back. There is no anti-vax movement. It does not exist. It is an active disinformation campaign pushed by foreign governments, particularly Russia. We're not the only people saying this. Do your research. But pushed primarily by Russia. It initially started because Russia wanted to undermine the beliefs and the faith in the Western European and North American developed vaccines because they wanted to sell the Sputnik 5 vaccine. That's what it all started from. And whenever somebody says jab, except for when I'm bringing up this point, they are deep in the disinformation rabbit hole. If you hear jab, you should just tune out because they are down the disinformation hole when they're at that point. We've presented over and over and over again. Here are the most vaccinated counties. Here are the least vaccinated. Oh, look, the most vaccinated counties have the least number of COVID cases compared to the least vaccinated counties, which have the most. I think I just screwed that up, didn't I? I just did a George Bush. The most vaccinated counties have the least number of cases, and the least vaccinated counties have the most number of cases. What a shock. Who'd have thought? It's like vaccines work. And it was pretty interesting watching Christina Comrade's stream today because the disinformation engine is really flailing because it's hitting home that there is no anti-vax movement, that this is a grift, that this is foreign intel using what they call useful idiots coupled with a bottoms-up approach where people are getting rich off of selling a lie. Today at this, that Christina Comrades was streaming, somebody called out America's frontline doctors. They have made millions of dollars, millions selling ivermectin. They have made it's a grift. That's all it is. It's a grift. And the number of people in the United States now that are saying, I won't get vaccinated over my dead body, ironic, is down to 12%. The number of people in Washington State saying, I won't get vaccinated over my dead body, ironic, is 8%. That's it. There's no movement. You wouldn't know it. If you went on social, you wouldn't know it because they have mobilized a very vocal group of people. But if you have watched some of the other anti-vaccination protests and you watched the stream today, we have the stream up on our page. We didn't scrape her stream. It's hers, but you can go to our Facebook page to find Christina Comrade's stream today. She did an amazing job. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I I couldn't do it. I would lose it with the Nazi signs. As a Jew, I would just be beyond offended with the Nazi signs. And I was really happy to see that other people were very offended by the Nazi signs. And they were getting shit from the sidewalk and people yelling at them in the cars and flipping them off. And it was good to see that. I mean, the other thing is too, think about this. This was 0 hour. This was D-Day. There's a whole bunch of people who are like, I'm looking fixed now, you're not the boss of me. That knew they did not have a job as of today. They knew it. And how many people could they muster? 100. About a dozen of them were kids who should be in school, by the way. We will mention that because I just did. About a dozen more kids who should be in school but weren't, being used in a couple of cases flat out as props. And here's the other thing I really want to point out, the hypocrisy of the people online that are supporting these group. Katie Davis Court is telling the group today, we have the numbers, let's march in the street, and trying to encourage people to march against traffic. You know, I seem to remember Katie being extremely critical of Black Lives Matter protesters marching in the street, of being extremely critical of people marching against the flow of traffic, and extremely critical of activist streamers who cross the line between protest organizer and independent journalist. And yet here she is today encouraging people to march in the street when, from a safety standpoint, they didn't have the numbers. Number one, they had no bike brigade. They had no car brigade. They had no plan. There was no discussion for safety protocols. None of it. That's number one. The second thing is she calls herself a journalist. And we have video evidence today. She's not a journalist. She's a protester. She was a protester. You're not a journalist. I have never taken a leadership role in a protest. Never. I have always stood back. And in early June, when I had to make a conscious decision where I wanted to go with this, I chose journalism. And I purposely stepped back. And people know, they know. People would come and let me tell you what the plan is. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. It's plausible deniability. It's going to taint my decisions. I'm here to film. That's it. I don't want to know. I'm just here to show the good, bad, and indifferent. End of story. So we have the hypocrisy of that. Let's talk about the next bit of hypocrisy. These are the same people that were like, we should just run them over. These are the same people who go, don't these losers have jobs? Why don't they have jobs? What are they doing on a random Monday at noon protesting? Oh, wait a minute. They don't have jobs. Buzzing. Right? You remember these comments, right? Remember this? Are they paid? They must be paid protest. There's a lot of evidence that there's astroturfing going on and paid protesters. You know, question for Palmer Davis. You had your event with Waking Up Washington over in Woodinville where you were charging a $20 cash cover charge to come into the room to get misinformation on how to get a fake exemption that ironically, once review board started seeing the boilerplate language and started identifying which of these applications were bullshit, just started blanket rejecting them. So not only did you give misinformation to people, but you actually put them in a worse position by giving them the misinformation on the promise, on the grifter's promise that I have the answer. You just got to give me $20 cash when you show up to the door. If that's not a grift, I don't know what is. Another time we could talk about Katie Couric censoring RGB because I'm disgusted by that. There's been a couple of things that have happened in what we could, Katie Couric, right? I think before last week, I think if you said the name Katie Couric, you start thinking, right, very professional journalist. There was another journalist, a sports journalist. I know we roasted him on Twitter where it came out that he was like, here, I'm writing this story about you. Let me go ahead and send it to you and edit it. Right. And he was kind of blown up from the Gruden story, the coach from the Raiders. because he essentially was, hey, here, Gruden, here, go ahead and edit this story that I wrote. Make sure I got everything right. Wink, wink. That's not journalism. That's not fact checking. That's just letting others control the narrative. Anybody can, literally anybody can do that. You'd have a chimpanzee do that. Put enough monkeys in a room with typewriters and they'll write Shakespeare. I forgot who said that. Yeah, I can't think of that reporter's name off the top of the head, but we roasted them on our Twitter because I'm like, that's not journalism. It's like, I didn't go to journalism school, but I have been trained in marketing on analyst relations and public relations, and I know enough to know that that's a no-no unless you are doing a real PR piece and you want that person to spin their PR. And if you're writing PR, that's fine. But if you're writing an objective piece, it's not okay to go to the person and say, did we get everything right here? Again, that's not fact checking. Fact checking literally could be, hey, I just want to confirm, we've looked up your stuff here. It says you worked here from this year to that year. Your title was this, but we found differing information. You go ahead and explain that to me. And then you kind of read between the lines. I don't see why I have to explain this to friggin' people on just the friggin'. Oh, it's just so friggin' irritating. So what I said, I was talking about Seattle buses. I do want to talk about the dark spots because there are some dark spots. The other thing I guess I want to talk before we get there, Nick Rolovich and 4 assistant coaches were shown the door, right? Rolovich was doing this. I don't know. Maybe, possibly. I don't know. I'll get back to you. Yeah. You just wait. You'll find out what my answer is. And then with less than a week to go, he found God, did a religious exemption. And of course, it was thrown out of hand. Anybody with brain cells should have seen that coming a mile away, including him. I'm sure he'll probably sue for his, what do I think will happen here? He'll probably sue for his salary based on wrongful termination. It will drag out for 6 to 12 months and the state will quietly pay him a settlement to go away. That's what I ultimately think's going to happen there. Will he get another coaching gig? I don't know. And it isn't the issue with the vaccination status. There's a couple of things. He was coaching in Hawaii before he came here, and his record in Hawaii wasn't impressive. His total record for the short time that he was coach for the Cougs is not impressive. So number one, he doesn't exactly have a great coaching. It's not bad. He has more wins than losses, but it's like by that much. So that's number one. The second thing is it shows state of mind. Right? It just shows somebody's willingness to be literally part of a frickin' team. He pissed it away. Are you all missing with Twitch? Is YouTube Troll City tonight? Well, here. We can do that. Bye, Tyrone. Thank you for playing. By Tyrone Shoelaces. Well, we certainly know where we knew it was going to get salty on one of our channels tonight. We all know where they went. It's friggin' fantastic. I'm sure there's going to be 5,000 thumb downs of this live tonight. They'll probably go through some of the old videos and thumb down all that other stuff too, because they're unemployed. They got nothing else to do with their time. Buzzing! Let's talk about some of the negative stuff that happened. Seattle, 142 bus routes cut. That we knew was coming last week. That isn't all because of the mandate. Yes, it is. No, it's not, because the city has been struggling with bus drivers before the mandate, before the war with mandate. Let's go back to when school first opened in Seattle. And there were some students who didn't get picked up. There were some students that waited 2-3 hours for a bus to show up. It was kind of a cluster because there wasn't enough drivers. Why isn't there enough drivers? Vaccine mandate. No. First student has a starting pay of $24 an hour. If you're a national audience, you're probably $24 an hour. Holy crap, I'm moving to Seattle. I'm driving a bus of Rugrats. $24 an hour bus driver, because remember, that's not full time, right? You don't work through the summer. You make about $31,000 a year. If you are making less than $72,000 a year in the city of Seattle, you are considered low income because the cost of living here is so high. If you are supporting a family and you are making less than $26,000 a year, you're considered impoverished, full stop. I don't know how a family could in any way, shape, or form even exist on $26,000 a year in Seattle. A little more than $2,000 a month. What? That's the bar? Holy crap. The 72,000, like it would be tough to live here on 72,000 a year. Rent is $2,000-$3,000 a month right out of the gate. I mean, $2,000 a month doesn't get you a nice place either. So that's a big part of it. No one wants to work for 31 grand a year, right? This is part of the Great Resignation. The next thing is a lot of people that say that would gravitate to bus drivers, semi-retired, they're looking to kind of make that money to supplement their Social Security. They got a good long look at the other side. There was no work for them. And they got a good long look at, well, do I need to keep, I've got maybe a little pension, not a lot, right? I got a token pension. I got a little 401k money coming in. I got some savings. My house is mostly paid off. So I just got to pay the property taxes. And that's a whole separate gentrification conversation. And I got my Social Security. I'm out driving a school bus. Why? Why am I, you know what? I didn't have to drive a school bus for a year because COVID, everything was closed. They didn't come back. They don't want to come back. So you already have a diminished number. There's this other thing. We have several TikTok videos on our channel, Malcontent News on TikTok, that really dives into the issues around the Great Resignation, unemployment, and where the hell did a few million people just go, right? Because it doesn't add up. And I could have a whole hour show just on that, and I'm not going to rat hole on it. We're 142 bus routes lost because of the vaccine mandate. No. Were some bus routes lost because of the did it add to it? Absolutely. Unquestionably. And the city of Seattle has said that this will be an indefinite problem. Now, G and Ursula on Cairo 97.3, they said this morning, I happened to just be running an errand. I had the radio on. I was listening to them, but they said that Seattle Public Schools is looking at options with King County Metro. Now, whether those options are contracting buses or that, I don't know. I do know on the East Coast, on like in New York City, in Boston, kids take the public bus to go to school. This isn't an unheard of thing to happen. And I'm sure that for older students, because they get the bus pass, some of them do instead of taking the school bus for a variety of reasons. Because if you're a student, right, if you're a student in the Seattle Public Schools, you automatically get a free bus pass for public transit. So regardless of your income. So you have that. Let's talk about the ferry system next. Ferry went down to a reduced schedule on October 16. It was stable. It's been stable, right? It was stable over the weekend. It was stable today. There's questions on how many people are going to leave, but we already have kind of an idea, right? They've staffed at that. We already covered this on Malcontent News, and it's the same thing. And I think we talked about this on the show, is the ferry situation because of the vaccine mandate. This one is even less than the buses. This one's like a little. No, it's not. Yeah, no, it is. It's just a little. See, back in 2000, we voted against car tax. Hey, I voted against it. I just moved here. And in Massachusetts at that time, car tabs were like in Washington State, right? They were like Sweden. It was ridiculous how high they were. And I didn't come here directly from Massachusetts. So I was very used to car tabs. But I got to tell you, like this whole $35 car tabs, yeah, I'm totally on board. Sure. This was Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm drawing a blank. Tim Imans. This was the first big Tim Iman campaign. What that $35 did, bringing it to $35, what that did in part was gut the budget to Seattle Ferries. The argument was, for a vast majority of the people in the state, they're like, I derive zero benefit from the ferry system, yet I am paying for it. That was kind of the political argument. There were other arguments, but that was the crux of it. So the Seattle Ferries, or should say Seattle, Washington State Ferries, second largest ferry system in the world, largest ferry system in the United States, are now, they get 70% of their revenue from fares. And when I first moved here, it was like nothing. I mean, it's not nothing, but it was damn close to nothing to go on a Washington State ferry for just shits and giggles. Let's go on the ferry. Beautiful view, sea air. We'll walk around, right? We'll go ahead and walk around Kingston, or it's just, I'm just going to go on the ferry. Or you could do Malcontentment, Clinton, right? You go over there and you've got like kind of little areas and places to eat and walk around there. You just took a ferry ride for the hell of it. You can still do that as a walk-on, but it's gotten a lot more expensive because they are 70% funded by fares. When COVID hit, nobody was taking ferries because nobody was going anywhere. This was devastating to their income. So they had to do a bunch of cuts. How do we know this isn't bullshit? Because we know that we have ferry boats that are falling apart that should have been retired years ago. We've already talked about this. There wasn't a whole lot of budget to buy new ferry boats. This is a problem. This has been a problem for years. The other thing is just a lot of people don't want to go into maritime jobs. It's not particularly attractive. And they've had a hard time for years recruiting people. And because they've had a hard time for years recruiting people as their workforce has aged, more people have retired, leaving less people in the force. So then you couple in the vaccine mandate, people getting frustrated with all the work hours, and confusion on their work hours because it's been feast or famine. It's been kind of like, there's only going to be like 30 people in the boat. We don't need you. And so there's been some people that just, they had their hours cut. Now all of a sudden they're working. They don't freaking want to deal with it. So they have a hard time recruiting in there. So again, is the ferry situation exclusively because of vaccine mandate? No. Did it contribute? Absolutely. Will it get better? It'll only get better if we fund the ferry system better. And right now we don't have a way to do it. So I don't know what the answer is going to be there. It'll be interesting to see what happens. The third thing is there is one hospital system in the state that reported today that they used the word exodus, that they have lost a significant number of employees. It's Samaritan Health Hospital in Moses Lake, 50-bed hospital, small, but not insignificant. However, the people that they lost are not patient-facing. They lost a lot of their employees that were in like supply chain and operations, and that's where they had the exodus. They lost 7 people that are in patient-facing roles. They didn't get specific in, is that med techs, med assistants, phlebotomists, specialists, nurses, doctors. They didn't get into the specifics of what the 7 is, but they also added that they contract out most of their clinical employees. That's a whole separate other discussion on how bullshit that is. They do that up in Bellingham for their emergency department, and that's a shit show up there. It's that could be a show in itself. So they're not anticipating from a clinical standpoint that this is going to be a huge impact because they're just going to bring in some more contract people to fill in the hole. That's going to impact their costs because we live in the United States where medicine is run as a friggin' cost center, not as a run for profit. Medicine for profit. It's like prison for profit. That makes no friggin' sense. Yeah, and that's Josie, I'm seeing your thing. There's no ferry expense for return from the San Juans. Completely true. There is no ferry expense for your car. Like if you go Edmonds to Kingston, you're paying for car and bodies. Let the bodies hit the floor. If you are coming back, you're only paying for bodies. You are not paying for people It's the same thing on Mukilteo Clinton. If you're coming from Clinton back to Mukilteo, you are only paying for the bodies. You're not paying for the car. If you go on the other side, you pay for the car. I don't know. Maybe the answer is you pay for car both ways. And maybe they have a validation process or something where you prove if you're a commuter. This isn't hard to. One of the things I've always been a little shocked with, and this was surprising for me on the Edmonds ferry. When I found out, like, if you lived in Edmonds, you just had to wait in line like everyone else. I was like, what? Because in Massachusetts, where I grew up, if you were on the ferry that's going to Nantucket or Martha's Vineyard, and you were a resident of the island, right? And you're like, I live on Nantucket. I live on Marysville. You went to the front of the line. They gave priority to the residents, which makes total friggin' sense to me. And it was always really surprising to me when you're coming back, right? If you're over at Kingston and you're sailing, that people that lived in Edmonds, hey, here's my driver's license, I live in Edmonds. Where it's like, okay, front of the line, you live in Edmonds, you need to get home. Home is right over there, so that's what we're going to do. This always surprised me that they don't do this. So, yes, there's still a lot of COVID cases in Ferry County. Go ahead and spam those hearts, by the way. Spam those hearts. Spam those hearts for our mods and admins. They're not working as hard as we expected tonight. We were expecting them to work hard tonight. So we'll get into that. I'm going to get into that here in a minute. The state did not provide updated COVID numbers for new cases, hospitalizations. Our theory is the people that crunch those numbers were working on who's vaxxed and who's not. And that's our speculation of why. And it isn't just that. It's also all the agencies that report up into the state that provide that information. So that's why we don't think there were any numbers. We held off on the update until 5:30, and I was like, we can't wait anymore, right? We have these promised interviews that we have for the local things. There's a lot that's happened today we need to get out. I want to talk about, because this is going to segue into this. Well, I didn't have this on my 2021 bingo card, I'll tell you that. So there was a protest today. It was set up by Waking Up Washington. It was at City Hall. I talked about this earlier. I dropped it. I'm going to spring back to that. I'll spring back to that. There were about 100-ish people that were at City Hall. There was about 2 hours of speeches. There was misinformation. There was some serious disinformation. Stuff I'm just not even going to I can't repeat. We might get knocked off the air. We might get a strike for spreading disinformation if I even friggin' talk about some of the stuff that was being said. And there were people holding signs about shit that happened from 1933 and 1945 in Germany and making this false moral equivalency that somehow remember, they're like, my body, my choice. I'm sorry, but who's holding you down and sticking you with a needle? You have a choice. You have a choice not to get vaccinated. There are consequences in making that choice. I don't know how else to explain this. In 1935, when the Nuremberg laws, not to be confused with the Nuremberg Code, but in 1935, when the Nuremberg laws were passed, if you were Jewish and you wanted to get married, you had no choice. You couldn't. You would go to a concentration camp. If you were Jewish in 1935 and you wanted to have a kid, you can't. You have no choice. You will go to a concentration camp. In 1930, well, they took all the guns away. They didn't do that. What they did is said, you're a non-citizen. And in part of, why didn't they just leave? By making them a non-citizen, they had no passport. They had no option to leave at that point. Study your frickin' history before, and like this whole false comparison, it's like it's not even close. And there was somebody on the stream who was like, this is fascism, like define fascism. And they're like, look it up. I said, look, I know how to define fascism. I'm asking if you know. And of course, the ad hominem comes. Why? Because they can't friggin' define it. They know it, you know it, I know it. They just heard it and they're throwing it out there. There was one dude speaking up there, Civil War, blah, blah, blah. He claimed he's an Army veteran, and I call bullshit. And the reason I call bullshit that he's an Army veteran, if he's an Army veteran, he was never in the shit. Never. This guy was never shot at, never saw his buddy shot, never. Because of that. And if he did go through all the shit, then he's got some screws loose. Because almost anybody who went through the shit, they won't ever see it again. They wouldn't wish civil war on anyone. I'm Army and blah, war, and we're going to take it back. And blah. And I'm like, Jesus friggin' Christ, really? Brandy Cruz was there covering the event. She took a couple of very strategic photos that she put up on Twitter, that just showed a very lovely little picture of a needle and, no vaccine mandate, just showing your little local Rotarians there. She didn't show any of the Nazi signs. She didn't show the disinformation signs. She didn't highlight any of the disinformation speeches or this guy calling for civil war. They're just your little local Rotarians out having a little thing for the day. So they spoke for about 2 hours and they're like, okay, we're going to go march. And I already talked about this with Katie and marching through the streets. While they were speaking, during this 2 hours of speaking, a couple of SPD cruisers went by and giving thumbs up and honking horns, 2 marked vehicles, 1 unmarked vehicles with uniformed officers. And I just have to pull this up because hell froze over. If you haven't seen this yet, just sit down. You're going to need to sit down. Right. Here's Seattle Police Department. Here's their tweet. Look who they retweeted. What? We got retweeted by the Seattle Police Department? What? There it is. It's just nuts. And there's some people that are big mad over this. Big mad. Katie, big mad. It's very interesting. Whenever Katie kind of like comments, or I just always just bring up the question, how'd you get a concussion in January? And then Katie disappears. Whenever I bring up how'd you get the concussion in January? What happened? All right. You came back from Washington, D.C. You were there on the 6th. You claimed that you had no cell connection. You had no pictures, no videos, nothing. You shared nothing that happened. And, then you don't stream and you don't go out and people are kind of like asking, hey, how come you're not on the street? And then all the way back on the 20th, it's like, I'm still recovering from a concussion. That's why I'm not out. What happened? I get it. Maybe you don't want to reveal your personal medical information, but it's all sus. And then when the question comes up and you basically plead the virtual fifth, it just gets even more sus. Katie, oh my God, Katie is big mad. She is big mad. I never thought could just like, damn, triggered. Not the only one. I don't know. She'll probably have something clever on Instagram about me. That's generally where she tries to go because, like, she doesn't think we see it or something. I don't freaking know. I don't get my money from an organization that provides COVID disinformation that they're getting potentially from Russia and get paid to do it, to essentially pay to get people killed. That's not how I earn my living. So... Oh, Rex, no. The hissy fit, you can go look. The hissy fits on Twitter. This, because of this tweet and because SPD retweeted this, she is big mad. She is Big, big bad. Like, she's retweeted this with other comments attached to it at least 2 times. Big mad. I'm strangely amused by all of this. I'm strangely amused by all of this today because, what have we learned? What has been held up for the state to see, for the United States of America to see, for the world to see? What's been held up is what I've been saying for months, and what other content creators and some journalists have been saying for months. There is no anti-vax movement. There are grifters, there are bottom-up useful idiots, and there are state operators feeding information into them. And they were really flailing today. It was like the stuff, the vaccine's HIV. They're injecting people with HIV. What? There's polio. That's another one we heard today. Like, we heard this on the street. You're injecting polio in people. It's like, that doesn't even make sense. Over 90% of the population is vaccinated for polio. So if you inject, all you're doing is giving a polio booster shot. What? Are you this dense? Wait a minute, don't answer that. They're flailing. And when they're presented with these numbers that are coming from all these different organizations, right? It's one thing to go, look, I'm going to put myself in their shoes. It's one thing to go. It's a big grand conspiracy if all of the data was being channeled from the desk of Jay Inslee. You can then look at that and go, all right, I get it, because it's just one person. But we're getting numbers from little hospitals in Moses Lake, and the Spokane Fire Department, and the Kirkland Fire Department, and the Seattle Fire Department, and the Redmond Fire Department, the Seattle Police Department, and a litany of state agencies, and this college, and that college, and this college, and this school, and that school. There's stories running in Spokane like no teachers left. I was looking at the Spokane news. It's like, like no teacher, like the teachers are 100%. There is no apocalypse going on. Will there be pockets? Will we learn in early November that some hospital, little rural hospital in Eastern Washington, lost 25% of its staff? I wouldn't bet against it. No way. I wouldn't bet 1 penny against it. I totally believe that'll probably happen. But it's going to be 1 or 2 hospitals among dozens that are 95, 98, 99% vaccinated. And so people that don't believe in science are no longer in a role where they're providing medical care for people, and this is a bad thing. Law enforcement officers who tell people you must comply. This is the Seattle Police Department. We respect your right for peaceful protest and the First Amendment, but you can't be in the road. You must comply. That's low-level shit. Where was Seattle police today when Katie Daviscourt was walking in the street against traffic and did it multiple? Oh, that's right. Some of those officers were probably among the 100 people and were going around giving thumbs up and honking their horns. And as you saw in that tweet I put up there, hanging Gadsden flags from their police cruisers, which that actually is pretty scary when you think about it. And it is beyond hypocrisy that somebody who is in law enforcement, who is supposed to answer to the community at large and took an oath to protect and serve the community at large and to defend the Constitution, is hanging an anti-law enforcement flag off of their vehicle. Are these people we want on the streets in Seattle as police officers? Who would? Well, don't answer that. Like 8% would. I get it. This is what we learned. There's not an anti-vaccination movement. Look on social media. Look how many there are of us. You're just loud. You're loud. There's foreign bots. Every Mods and admins, put it up in the comments. Every mod and admin on this team has taken a course on how to spot sock puppet accounts. There are courses you can take. And once you take the course and you know what to look for, sock puppet accounts are so easy to look for. They're so easy to find. You see jab, sock puppet account, or a bottom-up useful idiot. You see the word jab. English is all wrong, useful idiot. Can't spell it. What about Israel? They always love bringing up Israel, and they spell it Israel. Sock puppet account. Don't use conjunctions. Don'ts, won'ts. They spell it out. Sock puppet account. I can just go on and on and on. No picture. Blacked out profiles. No picture. There was one that I saw like on TikTok, right? No picture, no videos, private account, following 3,091 following. Come on. It's like, you are a total sock puppet account. And that's what it is. And they use bots. And we know this because the political right has been caught using bots. It's enough about that. A couple other topics I want to talk about. We're going to call it a night. Sinclair Broadcasting Group got hacked and ransomware attacked. Sinclair Broadcasting Group is saying that data was stolen, but there also was ransomware attack, and it affected operations at a number. I know. It's crazy. I was talking about that earlier. Rashi, I'm a sock puppet. But we love you anyway. Loud like 5 chihuahuas in a car. Oh, my God. Rashi just wins the internet. Alex Jones is like a screaming, angry head. Kellen's in the house. I didn't even see her name go by. Alex Jones looks like he is a walking heart attack. I got totally distracted by all this stuff here. You guys. Oh, Sinclair. Thank you, Courtney. Anyway, it affected operations. Now, I want to say a couple of things. The first thing I want to say is this. Any attack on a bona fide journalist organization that impacts their ability to operate and deliver news is an attack on the First Amendment. I may not agree with that organization, but I will stand up against it. So that's number one. It's like, no. On the other side of the coin, Sinclair Broadcast Group is right of Fox News and left of Newsmax. They're somewhere between Fox News and Newsmax. And if you've been on the Como site at all in the last few weeks, you will see that the Sinclair Broadcast Group must run stories and the news desk, this is the other, something like the news desk or the news report or something. This is out of their Washington, D.C. TV station. That's the other must run. That amount of content has increased exponentially at Como. And if it's increased exponentially at Como, it has increased everywhere. And some of the stories that have run there was one story that practically openly called for insurrection, that, police aren't going for, they're not going to get the vaccine, blah, blah. Well, that didn't work out in Seattle because only 24 said no. Big hurt on that. I know they were just salivating for big numbers. There's big hurt tonight in the right-wing land, 24. They ran a story on that. They have run stories that have been damn close to vaccine disinformation. They'll run stories that you read it and you're like, okay, where does it get gross? Like, this is the thing. If you see it, because it's careful propaganda, and it flat out is propaganda. If you look at some of their must-run stories, and if you go ahead, you'll read, it's like, no, that's good. That's right. All right. And they're linking, and it's factual, and they're presenting both, and then somewhere it'll get gross. Somewhere it just becomes all Joe Biden's fault or liberals' fault, or, this terrible thing's going to happen, or, right? And you're just like, wait, it just went totally off the rails. No, it's like, this is how you do disinformation. This is how you do propaganda. You do little drips. A person doesn't wake up. A person doesn't just wake up in the morning and goes, I'm against the vaccine. That's not how disinformation works. That's not how radicalization works. It is a slow, it's not like what you friggin' see, we're going to brainwash someone. We're going to lock them in a room in 3 days and they're brainwashed. It's not how it works. It's slow. It's insidious. They attack on their fears. They want to give them a sense of belonging. And now we're in a dangerous phase. We're entering a dangerous phase now. You have a small group, but albeit a group of people that are deep down the disinformation rabbit hole and have had their jobs taken away from them. And some of these people are angry, and some of these people are armed, and some of these people are well trained. Now, I am in no way implying that any of these people are terrorists waiting to happen, domestic terrorists waiting to happen. But this is the toxic soup that creates a domestic terrorist, that creates a, we call them lone wolves. If they're white male, they're a lone wolf. If they're white female, it's unprecedented. And if they're any other shade of black or brown, then they're a terrorist. Right? That's how it works. And so I am not saying, but I will say we are entering, I think, a period of elevated risk, not just in Washington, but also in Oregon, where you can have somebody who a few months from now is really dug in their beliefs. They are down this rabbit hole. And don't forget, too, in the anti-vax movement, the anti-vax and the anti-government movement have intersected, right? The Proud Boys specifically, and Patriot Front to a lesser extent, are actively recruiting from the ranks of the anti-vaccine movement. So you get somebody who has had everything taken away from them. They perceive that they have been wronged by the state, wronged by authorities, wronged by the medical community, and they get a few, right? And then they're going to have this harsh reality of, because, they just give that free stuff to everybody, right? Because that's the same Kool-Aid that they drink. And then they're going to find out it's really hard to get the free stuff for everybody. They're not going to get unemployment. They're not going to qualify. Well, food stamp. One food stamp. You don't qualify for food stamp. You got too much money. You got too much assets. What do you mean food? You don't get food stamps. Get out of here. And this is the danger, right? Because their wife leaves them. Because maybe the wife is sick of the crazy, or the relationship was strained to begin with, and this is the end because they're fighting over money. Because that's what breaks up a lot of relationships. They lose their house, and now they're in a position where they got nothing to lose, and they're furious, at the state. And that's what I'm worried about. That's what I'm worried about. And where could that potential, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's something I'm worried about. And I will say this, Catherine, right? They've been saying for weeks, sick out, sick. They became the broken clock that was right, because they were saying for weeks, there's rumors. And then finally there was the sick out, and you go, okay, the broken clock was right. Oh, Roger, yeah, they totally do. And I don't think anybody that's in this camp is listening to me right now. But if you're in this camp, and you're in this disaffected camp, and you're listening to me, and you start going down this hole, get help. There's nothing. It is, it is a real sign of strength to go, I am overwhelmed. I am mentally overwhelmed and I need help. That is not a sign of weakness. That's a sign of strength. Sign of weakness is, I'm going to tough it out. It's all good. You okay, man? You don't look okay. I'm fine. Stop asking, asshole. Fine. I don't know, man. You just kicked your dog across the room for no friggin' reason and backhanded your wife. I don't think, shut up or I'll bag it. And don't get to that place. Girlfriend's someone to talk to. I'm not questioning your beliefs or values. Just, if you're getting to a dark place, you should get help. That should transcend beliefs, politics, gender, skin color, belief and value systems, religion. Get to a dark place. Get help. Get out of the dark place. That's it. This is way, way better than doing something really stupid and either yeeting yourself through suicide by cop or suicide yourself or sitting in a prison cell for the rest of your life. And then just also being mad at the world, still believing you were unjustly wronged. And I'll close with this on this topic. My body, my choice. Again, nobody is holding you down and sticking you with a needle. You have a choice. You have a choice to go find employment in some other vocation that doesn't require a vaccine. It's that friggin' simple. They can't do this to me. They do this all the friggin' time. We're in a right to work state. People in the tech industry, like I remember, 10, 15 years ago when I was in tech, we had to start like taking these ethic classes, and God, I hate them because you have to, anybody who's been in tech knows just what the frick I'm talking about. You got these stupid, they're stupid. You got these ethic classes and cybersecurity classes, and you got to take them once a year, and they're friggin' horrible. But guess what? You don't take those classes. At best case, it's a career limiting move. Worst case, they'll fire your ass for not taking those classes. This wasn't a qualification before. They've made it a qualification now. Lots of people are working from home. Their employers could tell them next week, your happy ass needs to start coming into the office again. But I've been working from home for 18 months. I have my life. I'm happy. I don't have to my kids in daycare. I got a dog. My dog's happy that I'm here. I'm happy. I'm more productive. I don't want to go friggin' work at a friggin' cubicle farm again. Well, if you don't want to come in and work, you don't have a job. They have a choice. It's not the same. It is the same thing. Because if they quit the cubicle farm, they could just need to go find another job somewhere else they can work from home. It is the same friggin' thing. It's false equivalency. And I'm not going to beat into the ground the whole thing on why the religious exemptions are, but we have it on the website. You go to the website, you go read it yourself. Or not. And we go into what religion, because there are a handful of religions that give you a valid religious exemption. If your religious exemption is over abortion and HE 293, it's bullshit. Especially if you've had almost any other vaccine because they used HE2, or you take a Tylenol, or for that matter, if you're an advocate of ivermectin, or if you're like, or if you're going to do Dennis Prager. Like, Dennis Prager got COVID. It's on the ticker. Prager's got COVID. Thoughts and prayers. And of course he's doing it's not that bad thing. And I'm taking the ivermectin. Oh, by the way, I got the monoclonal antibodies too. If they're all invested in the ivermectin bullshit, why do they go get the dead fetus juice? I've heard that. I heard that term for the first time today, and I'm just like, oh my God, that's fucking epic. Because monoclonal antibodies use HEK 293, right? And what's one of the things? I don't get the vaccine. It's experimental. Okay, so you get the monoclonal antibodies, which are developed almost using the same mRNA process that have a delivery vehicle of the spikes to kind of to interfere with the active infection that you have going on, and it's dead fetus juice, and it's only emergency use authorized, but you'll get that. Do you realize how fucking stupid you sound when you're like, well, I'm not getting the vaccine? If you're so invested in ivermectin, why are you getting the dead fetus juice? So you could say the ivermectin worked and then forget to mention you got the dead fetus juice. Invest in the ivermectin. If it works so well, just dig in and invest in it. And, you have an immune system, so just let your immune system do its thing. Immune system isn't a new invention. People had immune systems in the 1600s and they lived into their 30s. They lived great lives into their 30s. Women died in childbirth. But that's okay. They got an immune system. You could... Rex wins the internet. Dead fetus juice with horse paste. I would call that that is an unhappy meal. Does that come with an orange juice with extra vitamin C? I'm not going to be able to unsee this dead fetus juice plus horse paste. Some of those who work forces eat the paste made for horses. Oh my goodness. You've totally broken me with this comment. It's just amazing. I didn't. Would you like fries with the dead fetus juice? Dead fetus juice, now fortified with zinc and vitamin D in pine needle flavor. Where did this bullshit that pine needle tea? What the? Oh my God! All right, we always do the okay. I'm signing off for the night. Let's do a quick retweet here. We're picking up followers. We're picking up a lot of followers on our Twitter. It's because they're chuds. Oh my God! Oh, we have. Oh, here. Wait a minute. We have live video of those protesters tonight and what they're doing.
It's a cannibalistic humanoid underground dweller.
All right, I always do like this quick little, let's check the headlines. Let's check the headlines. We'll see what's in the headlines. Donald Trump suing to keep the January 6th panel from getting his information, claiming executive privilege that he doesn't have. Why would an innocent man want to hide all this stuff that would set him free, so to speak? Red Sox continue to punish the Astros. I love that headline. I'm stunned. I'm really stunned. I thought the Astros were. I thought the Red Sox were like one game in the playoffs and bye. I'm so friggin' stunned. Seahawks are screwed. Sorry, Seahawks fans. And the Patriots are screwed. Patriots are as screwed as the Seahawks this year. Tampa Bay's not screwed. But let's see. The Cardinals are legit. And that's why I say they're screwed. The Cards are 100% legit. They're 4 games back on the Cards. They're screwed. This is. I think the Seahawks and the Patriots are in a similar decision place on do they do a fire sale to get better position in the draft. Geno Smith did way better than what I thought. He did way, way better than what I thought. I have no faith in Geno Smith at all. And I know he got the strip and the overtime and blah, blah. I think Geno Smith actually played very admirably. I think he played a good game, and I do not like the guy. But even if Wilson came back next week, they're screwed. It's going to be really hard to dig out of this hole of 4 games behind. The same thing, like, again, and I'm not banging on the Patriots, the same thing. Patriots have lost 4 home games. That hasn't happened. They have not won a home game. That hasn't happened since 1990 when they went 1-16. It's bad. It's friggin' bad. And I know the Seahawks play a very challenging team, and then they get the Jaguars. The Jaguars will be a W. I can't remember who they're playing. I don't see how they win. I can't see it. I can't see him practicing left-handed. I can't see him playing with the injury he has and the risk. And the thing, with his injury, I could talk about this all night. We're way over time tonight again. The thing that when I heard he was injured, because I wasn't watching the game where he got hurt. We were on show. That's why I didn't watch the game. When I heard he was hurt, my first reaction was because he has no O-line, and he has spent a fair number of the last few seasons laying face down on the grass with very large bodies laying on top of him. And he was ready to leave the team. He was very unhappy about having no protection from his O-line. So when I heard he was injured, my initial thought was he's not an old guy, right? But he's been playing for a while. I'm like, his age caught up. He was scrambling for a play where he probably should have just done a slide or curled up metaphorically in the fetal position to protect the ball and take the hit. And instead, he just gets this bizarro, really bad luck. It's just bad luck. Like what happened there? I mean, that happens to quarterbacks a few times a game. This wasn't like, he was exposed or an O-line thing. A little bit of a hurry up pass. And it was just incredibly shitty luck. Really, really wild. I want to talk about Colin Powell a little bit. We have him on the ticker, right? Colin Powell died, 84, COVID. He was fully vaxxed. But he had multiple myeloma, which is a cancer of the blood, which makes you very immunocompromised. And we know that right out of the gate, as somebody who is, regardless of his stature, somebody who's BIPOC, somebody who is over 65, those two things right out of the gate already had 2 strikes on them, vaccinated or not. The multiple myeloma is huge. Like when I heard he died, when he had hurt, I'm like, wow. Because generally people in his position could just, hey, hi, I want the dead fetus juice. Sure, we'll get you the dead fetus juice and it'll all be good. And I would imagine he got the dead fetus juice out unless he just plummeted like that. And they were like, we can't give you the dead fetus juice because you'd be dead if we get, because that's the thing. If you reach this point in sickness and they give you the dead fetus juice, it actually will kill you. That's why if you're deep into your infection, or I'm sorry, you can't get the monoclonal antibody. I can't let go to death. I heard it today and I can't let it go. Colin Powell, super controversial figure. I got to hear him speak in the late 90s. Excellent speaker. And I think at one point in his career, I think there was a lot of expectation that he could run for president, that he was pretty in the middle. Like he could run as a Democrat, he could run as a Republican. He was independent-ish. And I think people thought he would have had a real chance. I don't know if people realize, right? He was a 4-star general. He entered enlisted, E1. He climbed all the way up through the ranks. That in itself is incredibly impressive. His parents were immigrants from Jamaica. He's 2nd generation. He's 1st generation American, 2nd generation. And what's the big stain? Well, of course, the big stain is the Gulf War, the Gulf War I, and his testimony. And it destroyed his credibility. And there was no recovering from this. None. And there's a lot of belief that when he testified, that he was just kind of going along with whatever the agenda was. And the thing, too, is we're 18 years past that now. We're almost 19 years past it. And I don't think anybody knows the answer on why we went into the Gulf War. I mean, 19 years after Vietnam, we at least could go, we were in Vietnam because of the domino theory, communism, America Mom and Apple Pie, the McNamara Doctrine, the domino theory. I mean, that's what it is. That's why we were in Vietnam, right? Proxy war with the Russians. And we could say that. We're 18 years after the Gulf War, and I don't think there's anybody that knows why the fuck we were there in the first place. There's a lot of people who believe he lies on purpose. Yeah, I totally agree. Right? He just threw it away. Seattle Light has blown goats for several years. Totally. And the goats didn't even enjoy it. I mean, that's the other thing. Like the goats were just totally let down and disappointed after that. They're like, that's it? That's all I get? It was mostly hands. This show has just become NC-17. I'm seeing the questions, on that. There's so much data to go through. You have no idea. You have no idea how massive 180 gigabytes of data is, and to pour through it, and in pouring through that, right? We're just. I got the real job. I have multiple clients we're supporting right now. I mean, the real job is super busy. That's part one. And then the second thing is we're just been in wall-to-wall COVID coverage for 2 months. So it's just a little hard to dig into it. There are people that are digging into it. There's a couple of things we have bubbled up that we've gotten, and there's other people that are looking. I love it, the TVMA picture. I'm not saying to hate on the Hawks. I'm just saying that Hawks fans are just going to have to accept there is no friggin' miracle. The only miracle they're going to get is like half the friggin' Cardinals teams comes down with like COVID and ends up on ventilators. That's the miracle you're going to have to hope for. I don't see how you dig out from a 4-hole game. The Cards are so strong. They completely devastated the Browns, and the Browns are a legit team. And they just destroyed the Browns because and the other thing is when you look at the Card schedule, their schedule is pretty easy. So that's the other thing. You look at their schedule, they just don't have a lot of hard games that are in there. Now, I will say this, even when the Seahawks have been struggling, they've kind of always had the Cards number. Red Sox Mariners. I've complained as a Red Sox fan, right? They freaking come to T-Mobile Park, Safeco, and I'm just like, it's the house of pain, man. The Red Sox they're going to blow goats. And they generally do. The Red Sox play terrible at Safeco. And there's a bunch of reasons on why that probably happens. It's a house of pain. And the Seahawks, when the Cardinals show up, or when they go there, it's kind of a house of pain, even when the Seahawks have been struggling. So, they might get 1 or 2 from the Cards, but they need more than just 2. I'm used to As somebody who's been a Red Sox fan since the late 70s, I'm so used to friggin' disappointment. It's just so friggin' sad. All right, everybody. I think it's late. I got a lot. Tuesday's a rough day because my first meeting's at 7 a.m, my first work meeting. So it's a friggin' tough day. And I haven't eaten enough today. I need to go find something to eat. I'm reading Connect. I guess it's Connect, maybe. I'm reading your thing about the Blackhawks. But we've talked about the Blackhawks logo in the past. We did a show when the Indians were officially retiring Chief Wahoo. People were like, well, then you need to get rid of these, right? And it's like, no. And we actually did this show where we kind of analyzed the existing sports logos that are out there that are based on Native American tribes, Native American nations, Native American icons. And the Blackhawks is really interesting, right? Because they have it's very beautiful, I think it is. And my understanding on the Blackhawks logo, it's a little complicated, but everyone's cool with it. But it's like a little complicated. Because I know one of the arguments is, well, you have to get rid of the Seahawks logo. I'm like, no. Because the Seahawks, when they made the logo, worked with the Coast Salish people to come up with that logo and get their thumbs up for it. So they were fine. Same thing with the Seminoles. People will bring up the Seminoles in Florida. And it's like, no, they worked with the Seminoles on that logo and got their thumbs up. So, yeah, tonight was a good show. We're going to have a great interview on Thursday. We got a great interview and a controversial interview with a controversial candidate. Y'all should be here for it Thursday. And I guess I need to call out that there's going to be a print companion version of the story out on October 22nd. Got to give a shout out to Renee. All right, everybody. I think this is where we say good night, everyone. And that's it. Malcontent out.
You're the white devil, bitch! Damn!
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions: a commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events live as it happens, to defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press, and to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile. You're the malcontent.
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said malcontent Antifa, fuck you!
You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a